I'm gonna hand out these pieces of paper. Do not look at them, okay? Do not look at them. If you could. Matter of fact, I'll let you pass these back. And then don't look at them. Do not look at them. Do not look at them. My name is Lashaude James. I've been coming to Connected for about a month now. I'm one of the leaders and teachers at the Rim Church. Me and my father-in-law own 2 small businesses that are in the education industry. We have about 13 clients and, 13 employees, about 200 clients or so that we're able to service. And what I wanted to share with you today is a very, very simple tool. But instead of just teaching about it, my hope is that we would actually be able to put our hands around it and actually work with it. And so in order for us to do this, I need us to try to think of a problem that we have inside of our life, all right? You can make it something personal and something that you actually are dealing with. And it could be relational, it could be in your business, but this really helps if you can just bring one thing to the top of your mind. I know normally speakers, they say, focus on me. I'm like, no, don't focus on me. I want you to actually think about whatever it is rattling in the back of your mind, kind of like in the basement that's kind of interrupting our time together right now. Go ahead and invite it up to the top of your mind. Does everybody kind of have something, a problem that they want to solve, something that they're trying to think through? Yeah? All right, and so Esther, I'm actually going to use you as an example. Do you have something that you wouldn't mind us workshopping together? Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay. So you don't have to give a bunch of details, but I'm going to ask you some questions. And in this I have a short demonstration we're going to do and kind of a longer demonstration that we're going to do. Okay. The longer demonstration will allow you to look at the paper that you're not allowed to look at right now. The shorter demonstration is something that's really concrete. All right. It's not abstract. Esther, are you familiar with a deck of playing cards at all? Yes. So you know there's 4 suits, right? Diamonds, hearts, clubs, and spades. If I were to ask you to name any one of those, which one would you name? Diamonds? Are you sure? Do you want to change your mind? Yeah, you want to stick with that? Okay, so here's what just happened. I provided the framework, and you mentioned like reframing questions so that you can get better answers. I provided a framework. She gave me an answer. And in this short demonstration, I want to show you how miraculous it is when you have a good framework, you get good answers. There's a deck of cards that's been sitting here on the table. I haven't touched it since we started talking, Esther, and we didn't talk about this prior to me walking up here at all. But I want to show you something. In this deck, I had 4 kings when I was sitting back there. I had the king of diamonds, hearts, clubs, and spades. I had to choose which one to turn in the opposite direction. And I had to make sure that we were going to match. Otherwise, this would be a terrible waste of everyone's time. I want you to see something here, that one of these cards, and only one, is the king of diamonds. I was so sure that this was going to work, Esther, that this is from a whole nother deck. Yeah, I mean, I was so sure that this was going to work. I didn't even print the other kings at all. There's just the king of diamonds. The reason I do this is because this seems miraculous, but all it was a little framing. I framed a question correctly, and you were able to give a good answer. And again, what seems impossible, whatever problem you have at the top of your mind right now, it's really difficult to solve. But if you just reframe a couple of questions, you'd be surprised at what you're able to get done. Albert Einstein had a quote where he said, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. And then once I knew the proper question, I could solve it in less than 5 minutes. All right. And so I'd want us to maybe take a little bit of time, just 5 more minutes on just reframing some of the questions that we have. So Esther, your question is on scalability. There's a book by Greg McCowan called Effortless. And I've actually printed a summary of it right here, so you can look at the summary. You'll see a couple of questions here. We are not going to go through all of them. We're only going to play with a few of them. And Esther, you're going to help us through this exercise. Yes, actually, let me see. There we go. We'll share. The first question I want us to play with is the question of inverting. Inverting. How can I make this easy? So when you talk about scalability, you could be thinking of hiring. You could be thinking of leveraging technology. There's probably a lot of things popping around in your head. But if I were to ask you, what would this look like if it was easy? Just remove all the kind of logical barriers that you're thinking through and the complexities. If this were easy, what would scalability look like? If it was easy. If it was easy. A call center? Okay, maybe, yeah. Just kind of gets the ideas rolling. Think about your own problem. If you were trying to solve this problem, what would it look like if it was easy? Try to remove the complexities of what you know are barriers and just go back to simplifying it. It's like, if this was easy, this is how I would do it. Another question I want to play with is the enjoy question. How can I make this fun? A lot of the questions that are rattling around in the back of your mind, they are not fun things. They're probably things that are not in your area of expertise. whether you hate technology and it's a technology question, or maybe you hate conflict and it's conflict resolution. So I'd love to ask, what would make this enjoyable? So think about you and your personality and things that you do find enjoyable. What would make this enjoyable when you think about scaling? How could you make it fun? So if you maybe combine the call center with some form of seeing how you could teach people to do this and how you could multiply your insights that you've had over the past couple of years to other people so that they can teach it maybe even to other people, that would be fun. Again, there's a lot of complexities. I know I'm oversimplifying this, but if we focus on just the enjoyable aspects of this, it kind of starts to reframe this problem and then gives us a clearer perspective. And these are things that all of you know. Like, we all know that the perspective that you have or the framework you have really changes how you see an issue. So let's do maybe 3 more. Let's go down to where it says start. What's the obvious first action? Again, these are things that we all know, but I think a lot of our thinking is either scattered thinking or it's very focused, linear, like down in the weeds thinking. And sometimes we vacillate between like vision and what my next step is. And so I'd love to ask Esther, when you think about scalability, what would be an obvious first step? It doesn't have to be going toward the call center. It could be going in any direction, but what's an obvious first step you know you have to take? Capital? Take it one step farther. In order to find capital, what's the first step? Okay, take it once. Let's go one more back. In order to put something together, in order to find the capital, what's the obvious first step you have to take from there? I know.
Action.
Yeah, what's the obvious first action? So we know we need capital. You say you need to put together a presentation or do that. In order to put together the presentation to do that, what's the obvious first step? Carving out time? Okay.
Probably need some data.
Maybe, okay. So again, I know there's the ideas that you all are dealing with are of grave importance. They're complex, they are not simple, but sometimes just reframing something into a simple question can give a little bit of clarity in order to take the next step. So maybe it's a call center. Maybe I can envision myself teaching in this environment to scale up by teaching. Maybe the obvious first step is just to whip out my calendar and commit to a time, share it with my employees, tell them this is time where I'm going to go away and work on this scalability, and maybe even having someone hold me accountable to that to say, hey, make sure I don't come out of this room without something on a piece of paper that helps us get funding to help us maybe scale. Progress. Let's look at progress. It says, will I generate rubbish is the question, but another way of saying that is, how do you get a very quick and ugly and dirty first draft? Like so I want you to imagine you have rented a room here at Connected, and you go in there and you shut the door and you whip open the laptop and you're about to put together this presentation, and all of a sudden that writer's block hits you of all of the data and information that's gonna have to go into this thing. And you start to feel like you start to feel stuck. How could you generate a first draft as fast as possible? And I want speed over accuracy or even over it being pretty. What do you think would be a really fast first draft that you can do maybe in, let's say, 45 minutes? If just
Don't borrow the doc's laptop.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, Joel. I know that was a good answer. Yeah, AI. Like,
It is too cluttered.
yeah. So maybe using AI to help leverage what the details. Yeah, of the details of the presentation might look like. The idea here is just starting and getting a first draft out is much more valuable than obviously working on something long form and just spending hours and hours and hours on it. Sometimes getting a full first draft from start to finish, even if it's rubbish, it gives you something to come back to. It gives you kind of a framework you can work on, and it gives you something you can hand off to somebody else to say, can you please look this over for me? And just tear it apart, add to it, and do whatever you can. Lastly, let's look at the question that says lift. How can I harness strength? How can I harness other people's strength? Who could you leverage? Think about people. Who could you leverage in your relational ecosystem that could help with this problem of scalability? Think of who's the first person that pops in your head? Brent? Yeah. Yeah. When I was studying business in undergrad and graduate school, we looked at lean management, and they started talking about the different types of waste inside of management. And I saw a statistic that I thought was really weird, and it said that the #1 wasted resource in any organization is human resources, people. It's always the most underleveraged resource. I believe from a biblical perspective that the human being is the greatest technology that was ever created. It's the climax of all creation was a human being. There is not an iPhone, laptop, or AI system or anything that could ever outdo what a human can do. There are great tools out there, but humans are the greatest resource known to man. And that's probably why they're the most number one under leveraged resource known to man, is because I don't see all the greatness that's sitting right next to me. I don't even know, or I'm not even curious about what this person might have to offer or the life stories that this person has or anyone in this room. And so I just don't ask good questions. And I just struggle with my own problems in my own way. I would love for you all to think about the problems that you all have. And is there somebody that comes to mind where you say, you know what, I could just shoot this person an email or just give them a phone call, and it would probably leverage their resources to help me with what's going on in the back of my mind. And they might want to hear from you. You'd be surprised how many people wouldn't mind just hearing from you and getting a check-in, and then you just ask them to help. The last one is automate. How can I do this only once? How can I do this only once? So again, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, Esther. You're thinking about scalability. Is there any way that after this process gets going, that you can automate it so that you don't have to return back to the same questions again? What are some things you can do to automate this scaling question, or this maybe scaling or funding question?
And AI features that's out there that a lot of that's very, especially what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be an auto, but also just probably, I don't know. I'm keeping my job as so full. It's
Mm-hmm.
Video training.
Ooh, videos of your training. So we're leveraging technologies to, yeah. You'd be surprised how much value you can get out of just an audio recording on your cell phone that you just save somewhere and then tell your people to refer back to. You're still going to teach. You're still going to get in front of them and demonstrate what it is to do. But it really helps if you can, at the end of your teaching, if you can say, I'm going to send you a file. I want you to listen to it and just give me your top 3 takeaways the next time we meet. Game changer. It doesn't have to be edited. It doesn't have to be pretty. It could literally be you and your phone just talking into it. More is caught than taught anyways. So when I hear your voice, I'm catching more than you're teaching. All of the paperwork that you just gave in your presentation was awesome, but just catching the spirit that you're walking in and the mentality that you have toward this subject is almost more valuable than the PDFs that you're able to share. And so automating this teaching process by just recording it down and saying, hey, just watch it. I know it's not pretty, it's not edited, but just watch it, listen to it, give me your top 3 takeaways. That can automate some of the process for you. Let me ask, was this helpful?
Yes.
Yeah? What was the most helpful thing that you heard so far? What was the most helpful thing you heard?
For me, it was the reframing. Like, instead of looking at, oh, this task is so heavy, so big, so overwhelming, boring, whatever the negative is, flip it, invert it to a positive. Like, that's the best thing to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna make
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And somebody else, yeah. Breaking it down, yeah. And these are things we all know, right? We've heard some of this stuff before, but it's always good to have a reminder. And so that's, again, I just wanted to come with a reminder of like, you can take these things, you can break them down. I know they're complex, but if you force yourself through some sort of system of questions that encourages a different reframing of your problem, you'd be surprised at what you're able to pull off. Yeah, all right, I think that's time for me. Thank you all.